Hello, my name's Michael Conneely, and this video is about Mercury Retrograde in October-November 2020 and its effect on the US presidential election and its not good effects. And it's actually part 3 of our October Starwheel Astrology and Healing newsletter. So let's start with Mercury Retrograde and the US presidential election. We'll also be talking in related issues of Mars and the nodes of the Moon. So Mercury starts October at 10 degrees Vedic Libra, and Mercury turns retrograde at 17 degrees Vedic Libra on the 14th of October. And he actually retrogrades right back to 1 degree Libra on the 3rd of November. And so note that we're thus in the shadow phase of this Mercury retrograde from the 23rd of September, when Mercury was at 1 Libra, until the 19th of November, when Mercury regains his pre-retrogradation position of 17 Libra. So the actual full energy of the retrograde is from the 14th of October to the 3rd of November, but you have to take in the shadow period before and after the retrograde, when Mercury is transiting in the same degrees that will be part of the retrograde or have been part of the retrograde. So obviously, during this Mercury period, be prepared for and manage all the usual Mercury retrograde problems. People vary how easy or how awful their Mercury retrograde problems are. I have Mercury retrograde in my birth chart, and Mercury is conjunct K2 and Lord of the 12th, so please don't ask me what my Mercury retrograde problems are. I don't want to be reminded just yet. So in other words, prepare as much as you can and expect for and try to manage all the usual Mercury retrograde problems of communication, quality of speech, posts and IT. But difficult though Mercury retrograde is for some people, how bad it will be for others depends on how Mercury is in your birth chart and what signs and houses Mercury rules in your birth chart. And as I said, the Mercury retrograde period ends on the 3rd of November. And as I said in the previous video, when a planet is reaching the end of his retrograde and turns direct, he's stationing. His velocity goes slower and slower and slower and stations, and he then goes direct. And that's what's happening on the 3rd of November. And the other point to express is that the slower a velocity a planet has, the deeper he carves his energies. And so the deep carving of this Mercury retrograde will be on the day of the US presidential election. Now, this is serious. The last time it happened was actually the presidential election on the 17th of November 2020, when the outcome of the race between Bush and Gore was unknown for several weeks due to a dispute over close vote totals. Bush was said to have received 50,456,062 votes. Gore was said to have received 50,996,582 votes. But Florida had a major recount dispute. And there was an intense recount process, and the matter went to the decision of the US Supreme Court, Bush versus Gore. Bush won Florida's electoral votes by a margin of only 537 votes out of almost 6 million cast, and as a result Bush became the president-elect, and the process of all that was extremely divisive. The same will happen with this election and worse, because also see my blog and video of about the eclipse of the 14th of December 2020, which is actually right on Donald Trump's natal Moon Ketu conjunction, and as a result it will affect the stability of his mind and the sort of actions he goes in for. Do see that. And the other thing to remember is that Mars is retrograde too at this time, and Mars is in Pisces at this time, and that's the 4th house of the chart of the USA, the Kelleher chart, equals fighting in the homeland at this time. And also note that on the 7th of October, Uranus is opposite Mercury, and this is retrograde Uranus, and Uranus is opposite Mercury again on the 19th of October and the 18th of November. Well, positively, Uranus-Mercury is intuition and the revolutionary spirit, the revolutionary mind and inventive thinking. But negatively, Uranus opposite Mercury is nervous haste, confusion, brutal frankness, self-overestimation, contradictory dispositions. It affects computer and IT issues. It will create ugly and violent scenes. And therefore, at the whole time of this Mercury retrograde period that starts in October and runs into November, you might want to pretty well stay away from social media or handle it very wisely. We do need to filter out so many of the conspiracy theories and flaky spiritual paths that are going around at this devastating time that is coming in. And that in a way is the spiritual purpose of the devastating time, because there'll be a polarization, the dark is rising, and that's making some people embrace more and more of the light. And there will of course be a crunch. So we need to filter out obstructive thoughts, communications and influences so that we are really able and ready to become and be ourselves and really take off. And just to say, the Sun at this period transits from 14 degrees Virgo at the start of October, Vedic Virgo, transiting into Vedic Libra on the 17th of October, and so ends October at 13 Libra. And so the Sun transits through the nakshatras of Hasta, Chitra and Swati. Well, as I said, at the same time of this Mercury retrograde, there's relevant energies from Mars and the nodes of the Moon. So, okay, let me just cover those because they contribute to the overall picture which you need to understand and deal with. The nodes of the Moon change sign on September the 23rd, just gone, with Rahu leaving Gemini and entering Taurus, and Ketu leaving Sagittarius and entering Scorpio. And note that the nodes changing signs often cause turbulent weather, internet problems, and in this case some upsurge of coronavirus issues, particularly because Ketu crossed the Gandanta zone between Sagittarius and Scorpio, and that's the zones of immateriality between water and fire signs, so from water sign Scorpio to fire sign Sagittarius. And Ketu's energy anyway is fierce and super strong and cutting. Although if we can use the opportunity offered to utilize this energy and what happens spiritually, then it's mystical and occult. Now, Rahu changed signs, as I said, from Vedic Gemini to Taurus, But Rahu didn't have to go through a Gandanta zone to do that. There were 3 Gandanta zones: Pisces to Aries, Cancer to Leo, and Scorpio to Sagittarius. And Rahu didn't have to go through one. But at this time, Rahu was in the end of Mrigashira Nakshatra, ruled by Mars, before the change of sign, and now it's in the early part of Mrigashira, ruled by Mars. And so it's a super martial Rahu, and Rahu is driven and even demonic. It's very close indeed to Donald Trump's own sun Rahu, and it at least trebles the sun Rahu Mars hugeness and power. So you might like to check out the effects of the nodes in their new signs of Taurus and Scorpio on you personally in your life. So look, what are the houses in your birth chart that are Taurus, where Rahu now is, and Scorpio, where Ketu now is? And that will give you very good guidance as to the life areas that will be affected by the nodes changing sign. It's a huge thing. Get in touch with me for a reading. Go to my Starwheel Astrology website and use the buy page. But the other cutting influence is Mars at this time. You see, Mars is retrograde from September the 10th to November the 14th. And Mars moves from Aries backward into Pisces, crossing over on the 4th of October. And of course, going through the Gandanta zone between Pisces and Aries. So Mars develops huge immaterial powers, as well as the aggression that Mars retrograde anyway always produces, as well as the aggression that Mars transiting through Aries always produces, as well as the messiness that Mars always manifests when he's in Vedic Pisces. And of course he enters the 4th house of the USA birth chart, the Kalaha chart, and so yes, rioting and unrest in the homeland. So listen, we must, all of us, monitor our Mars energies at this time. They could be making us feeling very nervous and unconfident, or they could be making us super aggressive and very irritable. And so share this with your loved ones. Be super aware of how you are handling Mars energies. Mars in these 2 signs can have a big impact in relationship. Please hear that. And the whole point is, Mars is square the vastness of the Jupiter-Pluto-Saturn conjunction at this time, a very angry square. So Jupiter-Pluto are pitting themselves against Saturn's structures, and Mars is sending in the troops and raising the roof. And of course the divine call in this is to understand Mars better. Every planet is a face of the divine. And the methods I use are to work with Mars-type deities, yes, from the Vedic pantheon, but also from the Greek and Roman, the Norse and the Irish and the Egyptian pantheons. It's like a speciality of mine. I spent time in a Tibetan Buddhist Gompa and did loads of deity work, envisioning deities in their Pure Land and then arising as deity. It's the one that suits me. And indeed, one can envisage in a deity. For example, you can stand before a picture of a deity and dialogue from the heart. In this case, it would be Mars, a Mars-type deity. But also there's embodiment work, and that is quite wonderful. So stand embodying a Mars deity, say for only 5 minutes a day. See how that feels. Note the change in the way you hold yourself and the way your mind's handling things. Now in the attached blog, there's quite a long summary of these Mars events squaring Jupiter, Pluto and Saturn over the period July the 25th to January the 2nd. So have a look at the attached blog. As I said, if you want a reading for management of yourself, your consciousness and your life at this time, go to my Starwheel Astrology buy page, and my wife Maggie Pashley does many wonderful online healings from her website www.maggiepashley.com. Okay, so that's the end of the part 3 video of the October Starwheel Astrology and Healing newsletter. Now please go to part 4, also about something peaking in October, and it's Neptune opposite Venus love challenges. Thank you.